With regard to the UN Green Climate Fund, members of Congress are expected to be good stewards of taxpayer funds, not be providing funding to agencies that's not needed. Well, it raises serious concerns then that the U.S. Department of State has at least $500 million sitting around in funding that's no longer needed for the purposes for which it was approved. Whether you have the legal authority or not to move it, you have chosen to move $500 million from programs for which it was approved. So if funding is no longer needed for the original purpose, then the money really should be returned to the U.S. Treasury. It's clear this committee must take a closer look at the State Department's entire budget and resource allocation if millions, 500 million of surplus funds intended for specific programs are suddenly available to be spent on other priorities. So my question is, what specific accounts were so overfunded, allowing you at the State Department to divert these funds to the United Nations Green Climate Fund?
Senator, you mentioned President Obama's pledge. We also included in our FY16 budget a request for funding for the Green Climate Fund, as we have in the FY17 budget. So as we do our budgeting process, we didn't look around and say where are excess funds we can put to this. We built it into our budget request. And as we received the 16 bill and made allocations of programs, we have the authority and the ability to fund that requirement.
What exact accounts were then overfunded to be able to move the money out?
Senator, nothing is overfunded. We looked across the appropriations bills and made allocations based on what our budget was and what resources were provided to us.
Well, you know, I firmly oppose what the President is doing here, and this misuse, I believe, of taxpayer dollars, I think completely in violation of the law, and this will come to additional concerns raised to you and those who work at the State Department for this mismanagement. The United States national debt currently is $19 trillion. We have struggling communities across this country in need of help. There was a debate in Flint the other night, and I just think it's hard to explain to taxpayers in struggling communities across our country, even places like Flint, that this President and this administration is willing to give $500 million as a handout to foreign bureaucrats instead of addressing real problems here at home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no additional questions.